Good evening, everyone. My name's Dave Jensen, and welcome to the Captiva Island Historical Society's speaker event. I would like to give special thanks to our event sponsor, the Sanibel Captiva Trust Company, and also Celsius for providing a wonderful spot. At this time, I would like to introduce our chairman, Mr. Tom Libinati.
You know, when you have a featured speaker like our speaker tonight, you could probably say this is such a unique person that they need no introduction. But I'm not going to take that easy way out. It isn't easy to describe Katie Gardenia. There's probably no way that you can characterize her or label her. But I am going to take a crack at that, all right? Restaurant owner, for starters. She's owned 6 restaurants. We certainly all know Captiva, the iconic Bubble Room. She's an artist. You've seen some of her mermaid and some of her fabric art out in the lobby.
Talk into the mic.
Oh, okay. Thank you. She's an author. Many of her stories tonight that you're going to hear are contained in her book, The Bubble Moment, which we also have out in the lobby for sale later, and Katie would be glad to sign those. She's an inspired cook and baker. Does anyone need to be reminded of Bubble Room desserts? An entrepreneur. Now here's a long list. Katie has owned a needlepoint shop, a gift shop, 2 tennis stores, an antique shop, a cottage industry handbag factory employing single mothers and disabled individuals. She's a decorator. Katie has lived in and decorated 36 homes. And I would say that we're going to find out tonight what a wonderful storyteller she is. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce Katie Gardenia.
I want you to take this.
Okay.
I bet you all are wondering what this is about. Just look at the back. Oh, Queenie, I love your chopsticks. Okay, this has got to go like this. Woo. Thank you. I'm good.
Red wine and a refill.
Yes, and a carrot and a slice of watermelon. I am happy to be here. Oh my goodness, so many of your faces, I know. You still look young and good. So you're probably wondering about this getup. Well, I was invited to take care of 2 cats, and I jumped on it because I wanted to watch the Academy Awards while I was here. And while watching the Academy Awards, I had many glasses of wine and some hors d'oeuvres. And around 11 o'clock, I thought, damn, I need a ball gown for this event. And so I got on eBay, and there was this wonderful 1950s ball gown for $36, and they paid the shipping. Bingo. So I bid on it and had 47 minutes to go. So I'm like watching the Academy Awards, and then they screwed up on whoever won what, and I was like, okay. And then they said you won, and so I got it. Came in the mail, and I was like, oh my God, I love this color. I love the whole thing. It just is so wonderful. And I went in the bathroom, and I put it on my head, and then I got stuck. And half of my body is in it and half isn't, and my dog is howling because I'm screaming, and my wonderful friend that has rented me a place to live is upstairs, and she goes, I heard your dog howling. And I'm like, and you didn't come? And so then I finally got it off, and I was going to take it apart. And then I thought, I don't have time for this. So I'll just be a paper doll, and I'll just pin it to the front of me. So, a bubble moment. Oh my goodness. I've thought about this. I ran into my friend this morning and said, I haven't prepared for this. And he said, well, you don't need to, just talk. I'm pretty good about that, so I like to talk. And I've thought back about all the years, and the island to me, when I come past Tweenies and driving along, and I think, wow, there's no Australian pines, but there's wonderful sea oats, and there's beautiful trees, and the water's beautiful, and it's still an incredible island. And yet for me, I remember more the past. I remember people saying when Jamie and I came to the island that, you're going to change the island. And I find myself saying, well, the island's changed. Well, I guess I was part of that. So, who painted their houses and buildings bright purple and yellow and pink and had a train running around out front and all the insanity. So anyway, I said I didn't prepare, but then I went home. And then I'm writing, and I had 2 hours before I had to get the ball gown glued on. And I thought, first I'm going to go back. There is because I love the movies and I love theater, there was a sitcom on TV called The Affair, and intrigued me. And so it's about a writer, and so I asked one of my friends, well, shouldn't I, the guy in that film, he does book signings and he reads out of the book. Shouldn't I be reading out of the book? And she's like looking at me, well, I guess. And so I'm just going to read one page that means something to me. And then I thought I would share memories about how this even happened, which still, to me, sometimes I think, wow, this is a dream, this is, and I have goosebumps right now, and then my goosebumps get goosebumps, so that must mean it's pretty damn good. So anyway, all right. I separate my life into moments, a moment remembered, a moment forgot. Some things important, some things not. Looking back now, my moments at the Bubble Room are bittersweet. In the right place at the right time. Timing. It's all about the timing. Throwing fate to the wind, taking chances, the unknown. Faking, lying, putting on an act. Theater unfolding before my eyes. I always wanted to be in the theater, and there it was. It was like, okay, I'm going to do this. So, in 1977, I was a single mom that lived in San Antonio, Texas, that was a switchboard operator, like the I Love Lucy kind, that was doing this with the cords, and if you were sweating, your palms were sweating, you'd get shocked by the... And I was baking bear claws, pastries for a little bakery in San Antonio. And I went and delivered, and I was restoring a monastery that I had bought, house number 5. And I'm now in house number 34. Actually, I'm not in a house, I'm in a post office. And it was funny, the other day I told somebody that, and they said, "Oh my God, you get such great benefits." And I'm like, "What?" So, I don't know. So I'm restoring the monastery at night, and I'm working at Pearl Brewing Company, Pearl Brewery, and plugging the little cords in, and I'm making bear claws. And I go in and deliver the bear claws, and got paid, and out I came, and I heard this voice that yelled, "Stop, I want to meet you." And my life changed from that point. It's interesting how one little tiny fork in the road can change your whole life. And at that time, I had my child to take care of, and the 3 jobs I was doing, and the last thing that I had time for was romance. But I was married 3 months later, and the person moved in with me in the monastery. And it all sounds wonderful, but maybe not. So I'll toast to that. Wow, and they say don't mix. This is going to be interesting. Thank you, Linda Hooper. So anyway, so the person that supposedly swept me off my feet, we came to Florida, and I had never been to Florida before, and I did not like Florida. We were driving, and we went to Disney World, and I was like, "Ooh, boy." And you would think that I would like that because of all the costuming and all that, but it was just no. So then we drove, and all these billboards, and I'm thinking, no, I can't do this. And then we came over the causeway, and then started down Sandcap Road. And at that time, as you made the S-curve, and you're looking down towards where Jensen's is at the very end of the S-curve, and there is Tweeny's. There is this wonderful umbrella of Australian pine trees that is just cascading over, and it's like you're going through a tunnel. And I thought, okay. At that moment, I don't know if a lot of us believe in reincarnation or if we've been somewhere before, but I knew in my heart of hearts I had been here. I felt it in everything in my body and my bones. And so we drove around and decided this was good. And went back to San Antonio and put the monastery on the market, and and then came back to Captiva because this person that I had fallen madly in love with always wanted to be in the restaurant business, something that I had never been in. And even though I did bake, but I was baking in my home, so we came back to the island, and we first started looking at Foster's, which is where Key Lime Bistro is now. And it had little cottages, and I thought, oh my gosh, this would be great, except that my friend, my husband, wanted to do a bed and breakfast, which would mean washing the sheets and also serving breakfast and, picking the little hibiscus and putting them in the little vases and having them there at, 6 in the morning and on and on and on. But anyway, the Fosters, we negotiated with them, and that didn't work. And then, if I'm not mistaken, and you correct me, was there not a shell shop that was where you all had the no name? I think, and I think it was a seashell shop that was on Andy Rossi. No, that was what I bought. That was that. Here, come here. Or would you rather have a carrot? It kind of stimulates. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't worry.
Okay, well, it's in here, but I am not going through all these damn notes. So, we're gonna not worry about the notes. So, anyway, there was a shell shop there, and it was for sale. And And so we tried negotiating with them, and then we thought, okay, no, this isn't going to work. So now we're going to go over to the Owl and the Pussycat, who was owned by Paul Staling and Elaine Patton, who in the book I wrote about their romance, which I loved about them, because I would watch them walk down Andy Rossi, or rather walk back from the Mucky Duck down Andy Rossi after they'd had their lunch, kind of weaving in and out and holding hands, and going back to the Owl and the Pussycat, which was a gift shop, and upstairs was a little apartment, which I ended up living in. We negotiated with them, I don't know, it must have been 4 or 5 weeks every time that we would have an appointment with him. And Priscilla Murphy was the person that was handling this real estate negotiations for us. He wouldn't show up. And I'm like, okay, what kind of test is this? Well, he's playing golf, I know, but he had an appointment and he didn't come. And finally, the day that we did meet, I just looked at him and I said, you know, what is going on with you? And he goes, well, I'm just going to tell you right now. Everybody that comes to this island, they all want to be here. They all want to have a business. They all want to get rich. And then they go fishing or sailing or shelling, and it doesn't work. And I said, listen, first of all, I'm Polish. Second of all, if I'm going to give you some money, I'm going to make damn sure that this works. So, $250,000 for the property and the building. $50,000 down. A balloon, which I didn't even know what a balloon was, but I was just going, whatever. A balloon in 3 years. And we're off and running. Go back to San Antonio, pack up all the stuff, not in a U-Haul but in a long semi with all of the tchotchkes, and pull in. And then there's probably about, after giving Paul the money, maybe, I don't know, $40,000, $50,000 left. And now we have to create a restaurant, which was going to be a fern bar, which during the 70s, a fern bar was very, very popular. It was a lot of brass, a lot of ferns, a lot of high-end entrees, and there you go. Except that that wasn't going to work, because by the time all the remodeling and what we needed to do, there was, I think, around $10,000 left, and so the whole plan changed, and I started unpacking my grandparents' bubble lights, their old Rockola jukebox from their restaurant, and a Lionel train that I was looking at, thinking, I wonder where we should put that, which ended up around the ceiling of the restaurant that went outside of the restaurant, thinking that the people that were outside waiting would enjoy seeing this little locomotive come out. There were 5 cars at that time. And I had them do a hole that went into the kitchen, too. So, because I was in the kitchen, I wanted to be able to watch it go by. So it makes sense to me. So we're getting ready to open, and I think maybe there's like, I don't know, $2,000 left. Tick, tick, tick. We're supposed to open up. We didn't open until, I think, May 27th. We were supposed to open up like way, way before that. And I ordered my food, and Cisco came, and it was COD, and all the food went back because I didn't have enough money to pay Cisco. So Jamie gave him the list of things to go to Bailey's. For 1 year, he went to Bailey's every day. And I love it because, and I don't see him in the audience. Matt Asen, are you here? Because I'm going to tell a story about you. So Matt Asen was one night eating with me. He has the Timbers that you all know, and he's in table 6, and I came running out of the kitchen to get something, and he's waving, and I waved at him. And he goes, and I said, what? And he goes, what do you contribute your success? And I said, well, if I don't serve it fresh, I don't serve it. And I love it. But my point of that was that every day you go to Bailey's, you get it fresh. And by the way, at the end of the evening, because I didn't have a freezer, everything went in the dumpster. And in the book, I talk about one time, not one time, but many times, I had a meltdown, and I'm sitting on the back steps staring at the dumpster, and the raccoons are in the dumpster, and I see things flying out of the dumpster like green beans, squash casserole. I never see sticky buns or bubble bread. It's like those raccoons were having fun. And, I'm sitting there thinking, I have died and gone to hell. I'm 90 pounds now. I don't own a monastery. I live upstairs, and this is just insane. So, backtracking. So we came to Captiva, and we were going to get married. Got married kind of in San Antonio, but not like a wedding. So we were going to have the wedding on the beach. And I made this little white dress, and I'm thinking, okay, where are we going to have the wedding? We're going to have it in front of the little cottage number 6, and the beach is in front of us. And Nethel Moss, the postmistress, is going to marry us. Halloween night. So I look out on the porch, and Nethel is standing out on the beach dressed as a witch. She's holding a broom and a Bible, and there's 2 people standing next to her. I think they must have been from Europe, because he had on one of those little bathing suits and she had on a bikini, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm going back home. I don't have the monastery, but my daughter's still there finishing out her sophomore year in school. She hates me because I left her, and I'm going back. And then I'm screaming, come out, come out. Okay, so I go out. I'm standing there, and I look over at Nethel, and so she's, whatever. And we get married, and the sun is going down. And then I went to thank her, and she smiled at me, and she had all of her teeth blacked out. And I look over at the 2 bathing suit clad people, and they're crying because it's such a beautiful wedding. And then we go to the Mucky Duck, and Victor greets us, and he goes, are you dressed for Halloween, or did you just get married? And then it just, it started. So we opened on the 27th. Nobody came. It was 5 o'clock. We had no money to advertise, so we had made handwritten signs that we put on people's car windshields at Bailey's, at the Mucky Duck. They weren't too happy. At the Green Flash, up and down the island, we had, come see us, the bubble room's opening. And I'm looking out the little window of the front of the building thinking, what have I done now? And I go back in the kitchen, and I'm walking in a circle, and all of a sudden I hear, we had, for music, had the old Victrola that you had to crank, and you would crank it, and it had the kind of a horn, and that was going on. And I thought, what in the world? And I opened the door, and there were 27 seats, and every seat was full. And here comes an order, and I'm thinking, oh, I got to do a salad, except that I forgot to make the salad dressing. And at that time, I had a few parrots, and so I was toasting some nuts in the oven, and I put together a salad dressing, threw the nuts on top of the salad. It went out, and that became our signature house salad. And many of those recipes, fish in the bag. Okay, it has graham crackers in it. That was supposed to be for the key lime pie, and I was grabbing, and so there was a lot of accidents, which I think that's how truly good recipes happen, and on and on. But anyway, that night, 27 people, and it never stopped. The next day, and at 3 a.m, I'm mopping the kitchen floor, thinking, okay, this isn't a dinner party. I get to do this again. And start it all over again. And then the next night and the next night. And then, of course, greed sets in. And it's like, wow, if you've got 27 seats, why can't you have 47 seats? And hence came the Midnight Construction Company that built sets in the back parking lot, and then at night would erect the walls. And people would come in and go, I don't remember this room. And that's why the palm tree is still in the middle of the entrance hall when you walk in. So I could not, well, we didn't want anybody to hear the saw, the big chainsaw cutting down the tree. And I started out with my grandmother's 6 cake recipes, and because I'm obsessive compulsive, I ended up with 19 different desserts. And of course, I had to bake all my own bread and my lavash crackers, and I was making, I don't even know. I don't know how many. I lost track of time. Like I said, I would sit on the steps in the back looking out at the dumpster, thinking I want to go to their party because... And there was no air conditioning in the kitchen. So I had it in the book. I talk about the back screen door. And I love that part of this book because that back screen door had so many, many people that didn't knock. They would either just stand there, and out of the corner of my eye, I would see a shadow. And I would think, oh my goodness. For instance, a very tall gentleman that had on pajamas and a bathrobe, and it was in the middle of the day. And he was holding something that looked like a dead cat. And I was like, okay, I'll just act like he's not there, and I'm just keep on rolling out my sticky buns. And I finally said, can I help you? And he goes, yes, I've heard about them sticky buns. And I said, what'd you hear? And he said, I heard they were good. And I said, yeah, they were my grandmother's recipe. He said, well, I'm here to trade you. I said, okay, and what would that be for? And he goes, this here possum. And how many sticky buns do you want for it? 6. I said, well, that sounds like a pretty good fair trade. So take the possum, put it in a box, get the sticky buns, comes back the next week. And I'm thinking, this can't keep on. And I said, well, listen, what do I do with this? What do I do with the possums? And he goes, well, you boil it, and you put in potatoes, and you put in carrots, and you put in celery. And I'm, of course you do that. I did not put that recipe in this book. I did not. And so finally, after about 6 roadkills, I said, listen, I'm going to make you a deal, Mr. Rossi. You don't have to bring me any more roadkill. I'll just give you the sticky buns. And he looked at me, and he took my hand, and he said, and he took me because he's tall. He's tall, and he took my hand, and he goes, that's very kind of you, and you can call me Andy. So, and then there was Baker Walken, Christopher Walken's daddy, from Germany. So you didn't call him Mr. Walken, you called him Baker Walken because that was his trade. That's funny because at one point in my life, not too long ago, I had to leave, and I went to Matt Lachey, and I lived next to Bert's Bar, and all of a sudden somebody was calling me Cupcake Katie because I was making cupcakes. There was, Captain Jim and Fisherman, whatever, and I was Cupcake Katie. But anyway, Baker Walken, back screen door. And in between these two would be people that would come with towels, and I'm thinking, what is in that towel? And I would go to the back screen door and open it up, and they'd say, unwrap it, and I'd pull the towel back, and there would be a Shirley Temple doll that one of the people in their family had eaten with me, and they had passed, and they wanted that Shirley Temple doll to be part of that restaurant because their family came generation after generation. And I always said there were a lot of bubble babies that were born from that restaurant. And people have asked me over the years, how did you get all that stuff? Well, think about it. There was the 27 seats. It was little. We didn't have this. The second floor was filled with stuff that I had brought from San Antonio. And we lived upstairs. So once again, not being a fern bar and having to get open, I had collected, I always wanted to be in the theater, and I wanted to be a dancer, so I had black and white photographs that I had collected forever and ever and ever, and some toys. And Jamie also had collected antique toys, and the train was my grandfather's. So for a short time, we were just going to go ahead and slap those on the walls and put the toys in, and then as soon as we got money, it was going to be a fern bar. Well, people kept on bringing stuff to the screen door, and I had to put it up, so there was no fern bar. So, but Baker Walken. So I opened the door, and I thought, oh my goodness, this gentleman, his face, he kind of looks like a bulldog. He had this wonderful, he was a caricature. And then I looked down at his T-shirt, and it says, life's a bitch, and then you die. And I'm like, what? And he goes, I want to watch you. I said, do what? And he goes, bake. I'm a baker. I go, dear God, I don't want anybody watching me bake. So he got a stool, and he sat there, and this went on for several weeks. And we got to really be close friends. And one day he said to me, I have a secret. Ooh, I love that. So I quit, washed my hands, sat down next to him, and I said, what? And it's in the book, his secret. And I felt blessed that he shared that with me, a baking secret. And the night that Christopher won the Academy Award, Rose and he were at the restaurant, and they ran home, and the phone rang, and one of the servers said, we have a call for you. And I went and picked it up, and it was him, and he said, he won. And I felt like I was part of that family too. So like I said, I have been blessed in so many ways. And then you had Shirley, spirit of foolishness, who, she was a hoot. She ended up, she had 5 blue and gold macaw parrots that she wanted to get rid of. And she'd heard that I liked birds, so she bequeathed them to me. And upstairs they went. And one of them I ended up naming Houdini, because Houdini somehow got out of his cage, through the lock, and ate the leg off of the baby grand piano that was upstairs that crashed down on the floor. And it was a mess. But Shirley would come into the restaurant she liked young men, and she would come, her special table, and she would be sitting there I would run out to get something, and I'd kind of wave, and there'd be, in the same night, one person, and then later that evening there was another person, and so I got to know her because she would call and say, "Can you save this table for me?" And so one day I was baking, and the health inspector came running in, and he said, "I have to use your phone. I have to use your phone." There weren't any cell phones, and I said, "What's the matter?" And he was so red in the face, and he called, I guess, his supervisor, and he said, "I just came from Shirley's Spirit of Foolishness, and I'm never going back there again." And I'm trying to listen, like, what the heck is going on? And apparently he was going to, I think they only came like once a year because, the island is so far out. And at that time, too, speaking of that, we had, the only police were from Fort Myers. So we did have the firemen, but we didn't have the police. So anyway, he was, apparently Shirley yelled, "Rape, rape," and he left and never ever went back. And I'm thinking, wow, that's interesting. So she was a character. She was right across from South Seas as you come into the main entrance off to the side here. Had pool tables, and she basically had a pizza oven that she said belonged to her uncle, Mary Alonzo, which I don't know about that. But she played opera music a lot of times while people were in there playing pool at 2 in the morning, and it was a place for the kids that worked on the island for them to go, and she made a lot of good money. So, yes, good memories about that. And then, because maybe more is more, and I've always said I think more is more, I decided I had a hankering for my Mexican food because I'm from Texas. And so we rented a huge tent, put it in the back of the bubble room, and all the stuff that was on the second floor that we were going to get rid of went into that tent. And we kind of had like an ABC sale there, and got rid of a lot of it. And the second floor became Boops by the Bubble Room. And the reason it was called Boops by the Bubble Room is because the original Betty Boop lived in Cape Coral, Florida, and she ate with me a lot. Her nurse would bring her in a wheelchair, and she sat at a table that had pictures of her on the wall, and she basically, I would laugh because I think her fork missed her mouth most of the time because she was looking at all these pictures all the time. So Boops by the Bubble Room. And so here I am trying to do dinner at night and then my Mexican food. And I thought, you know what, I am way too tired. So I hired 2 young boys that they were wonderful. They had an imagination, they were good cooks, and they were gay. And that was fine with me. And in the kitchen they went, and they took over Boops. And apparently somebody went down to the Green Flash and announced that there were 2 gay guys cooking at Boops by the Bubble Room. That, I think we were open probably about 2 months, and about 3 o'clock one morning, I had just gone to bed, and there was this huge, loud boom, and a bomb was thrown in the front window of the Bubble Room on the window that's facing the main road. So the 2 boys left, and that day Island Glass came, put in a new window. A lot of people from the island came, picked up shards of glass. We didn't open for lunch, but we were back and running and opened for dinner because where there's a will, there's a way. And with that, then we decided, you know what, the second floor needs to be something. It needs to have a bar because we can make money with a bar. So then we go and add 150 seats. So now the restaurant goes from 27 seats to 47 seats to 60 seats to 150 seats, and we get a liquor license. And we decide to move from the upstairs. Now that's 2 years in. Bill and Hazel Hughes. Bill Hughes was the fire chief of the island, and they lived, would it be down, what lane? Old Lodge Lane. At the end of Old Lodge, there used to be a hotel. Is that right? You can correct me, I think. No, was it Old Lodge? Wasn't there a hotel down at the end?
Well, the Nanny Light Cottage.
But before that, there was a hotel that burned down. Yes. And then Bill and Hazel, Bill came to visit me, and he said, I've been pretty hard on you. And he was, because he did not want the bubble lights. And the bubble lights were still up because there was no Fern Bar. And the bubble lights was the ambience, and it was the name. And he said, okay, you need to change those out every 3 months. I'm like, what the heck? So we change out the bubble lights every 3 months. And he was right. But then he came to me and he said, I've got this piece of property right behind the bubble room. There's Bob Sabatino, and then there's Binder Lane, and then there's this little tiny cottage, and I want to sell it. I'm like, this sounds good to me. So we made a deal with him. And I don't even know if I should, well, there's probably no IRS here, so it's okay. I still think it's so interesting. We paid him in a brown paper bag. It was like, it's like, okay. And so, anyway, it was a little cottage, and then we wanted to keep that cottage. Like the Tuttles had the boathouse, and they built around, the boat was there, and they built their house around that. So anyway, so still at that house, there's that little cottage in there. And so I was thrilled, because then I could go and I would have a kitchen that had light, and I could bake my desserts there. Well, that lasted about 2 months because someone turned me into the health department, and so I was back at the bubble room. But before that happened, I think the lady Chadwick would come back behind the house. And you know how when you're on a boat or on the water and your voice carries? And so the boat's going by, and the guy that's the tour guide thing is saying, yes, and this is Jamie's home, the guy that owns the bubble room. And I'm making my Katie cake, and I don't know, I lost it, and I just went running out and jumped on top of a metal chair and screamed, "It's my house too!" The next time the boat came by, he still said the same thing, and then he goes, "It's her house too." I'm like, what the fuck? So anyway, back to the bubble room. And in those days, because I was now baking, 19 different desserts, 25 of each kind. Soap on a rope, where you have the soap hanging. Well, I had timers on a rope, and they were all labeled cheesecake, bubble bread, Katie cake, and they were going off. And it was insanity. It was crazy, crazy, crazy. So, yes. And I look back now and think how tired I was, and yet I wouldn't trade any of those days. I wouldn't trade any moment for anything, because I met just incredible people. Nethel, who you'd go to pick up your mail, and she always had a little bit of gossip, and I loved it, because I was stuck in that building, and I was like, oh, I just want to hear something. And she'd go, I heard you yelling for help. And I said, that wasn't me, it was one of the parrots. And she goes, oh, I thought maybe you needed help. I said, no, that was one of the parrots. And you'd open up your little box with your key to get your mail, and out Easter eggs would fall, or candy for Halloweeny. And she was just priceless. Harry, my dishwasher, who I found I took a walk, I don't know, I went upstairs at 4 o'clock to go take a shower and get ready for dinner one day, and I looked out the front windows, and there was a line of people, like a snake, going all the way around and down the main street. And I'm like, ugh. And I opened the window, and I just yelled, "Go home." I just was screaming, "Go home, go home, go home." And of course, I shut the window, and then I thought, "Oh my God, what have I done now?" So took my shower. And by that time, too, I should say this, that when I first opened the bubble room, my hair, I could sit on my hair. I had long black hair, and after 2 weeks, I smelled like garlic, and I smelled like bubble bread. And I shaved my head, and I wore a babushka. Every single day, I had my babushka on. And I've forgotten one of the best parts now, and I'm reverting back, but I'm not looking at these, so I'm just going to say this. So, and where is the gentleman that asked me when I was going to quit talking, because I told him just to do this, because I didn't know. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, you tell me. Just do this. So, yes, I needed servers. Yeah. How could I go, make the food, da, da, da. And the person that wanted the restaurant was out front cranking the Victrola. And so, so I thought, okay, so we're going to, what would be really fitting for this place? Well, I had only been a brownie growing up, and I always wanted to be a Girl Scout. So I thought, I'll go to the Ortiz flea market in Fort Myers, and I'll get some Girl Scout uniforms, and they'll dress as Girl Scouts. They have the little badges on and the whole thing. So I had 3 scouts: Luann Martin, Lisa Tuttle, and Annie, who was English, who I loved her because she took 3 hours to eat, and she would just savor each bite. And I thought, why don't we do that as Americans? And then I was reminded that I was in the restaurant business. And the whole theory is turn them and burn them. Get them in, get them out. Get them in, get them out. So I get the mail, and Nethel says to me, "This must be very important because it's certified." And I said, "Who's it from?" "The Girl Scouts of America." And she's looking. I open it up. "You will cease and desist right now. You're not going to be serving beer and wine with Girl Scout uniforms on." I'm like, what the? Okay, that's fine. Now we'll be Boy Scouts. So, and same thing happened. So then they became Bubble Scouts. And then people, not only were they bringing stuff to the back screen door to decorate the restaurant, they were bringing badges. And hence all of the Bubble Scouts had like 20 pounds of badges on them, all over them. And going back to my first servers, my daughter was finally came down, and she was in school. And Lisa and Luann were friends with her. And the nights that they didn't want to go home, they would spend the night with Paige, my daughter, and get up the next morning and come to the bubble room to work. And they came in one morning, and I'm looking at them both, and I said, "You have got to be kidding." I said, "What happened to your uniforms?" "We slept in them." I said, "No, this is not working. Take the uniforms off." And probably for 2 months, I'm ironing everyday uniforms for them now because I wanted them to look like they were presentable. And then, too, at the end of each shift, we fed them, but not with bubble food, because after you eat at a restaurant, your own restaurant, you have the same food day in and day out. So we had a little menu for them, and it got to where, well, we really don't want fried chicken tonight. We don't really want this tonight. So that was like short-lived as well. So yes, so the Bubble Scouts, and then I had a wonderful, wonderful hostess, Gloria Rossi, who when I moved back behind the bubble room, sometimes as much as you want to sleep, you can't sleep because you're so tired. You're wired from being in the restaurant business, and you're just up. And so early in the morning, in the crack of dawn, I would kind of just be sitting out on the little porch looking, and across the bay would come Gloria and Charlie. And if it was raining, she'd have on her yellow slicker. And I assumed they were going out fishing or going to do what they needed to do. And I asked her one time, I said, I need to know, what is it? Because I watch you and you do this. And she goes, I love this. I love this. This is all right. I love this. And I said, well, would you like to do something else? She goes, like what? I said, would you like to be a hostess, maybe, at the front desk? And she said, I would love to dress up and be a hostess at the front desk. She was an incredible, incredible hostess. She had poise, and she knew where to seat people, and she was spot on. And I felt just absolutely blessed to have her in my life. I would make excuses to come out of the kitchen so I could go up front and tell her what a great job she was doing. And she was good, because one night I decided, I don't know, I was crazy. I wanted to make truffles, and I made this, 24 truffles on a plate, and somebody opened the lid, and I heard her saying, don't you dare. And and someone had taken the glass lid off, and they were going to start eating the truffles, and she was like, no, don't you dare. So it was probably Willard Scott, because he used to eat with me a lot, and he was like, oh my goodness. And so if you look at the front of the bubble room and you see the main door to go in, off to the side is a little door, and that door was done later, after we were open for a while, for the celebrities that would come and eat with us. And people wouldn't leave them alone. They wouldn't let them eat. They wanted, their autographs, and they would come up and while they were eating. And so we did this little secret room, kind of. And Willard would sit in there, and Willard would, he was a Johnny Walker Red man, and he would have his Johnny Walker Red. And then I don't know how he ate that. Okay, prime rib that was like this big, and 2 restuffed potatoes, and 3 pieces of Katie cake. So, and speaking of Katie cake, when I sold the bubble room, all of the recipes went to them, but not the Katie cake. The Katie cake didn't, and the Katie cake was my great-grandmother's recipe, and it's a chiffon cake that has 12 eggs in it, and I only made one a day, even when we ended up having 5 bubble rooms. And we had a central kitchen that was in Orlando, where all the food was prepared and then went into pink Mercedes-Benz trucks, refrigerated, that went out all over the country. And so so the Katie cake, and I would 12 eggs, and then it was a light chiffon cake, and then you would whip your cream, fresh whipped cream. It was light as a feather, so it didn't matter if you ate that whole piece of prime rib, because you'd still have room for that piece of Katie cake. And the fresh whipped cream and homemade toasted almonds, and then praline candy that is not conducive to the humidity here. So I would have to do it in the walk-in, and I would have my jacket on, and I would be insane in the walk-in putting on the praline candy, and then I would go to the bar and sit and put on the almonds, and it looked like a big porcupine that maybe was brought over by Mr. Rossi. So, and starting out, we didn't have the dessert display that they have now. I wanted it to be, I don't know, it was the 70s. I wanted to have the rolling cart that went through, and then you put the ice in it, and you'd go to each person's table, and you'd ask, well, actually, you would see it. So whether you wanted it or not, it was right there in front of your face. And so many people have said to me, why do you serve such big portions? And I'm like, I don't advertise. So you're taking that piece of cake after you've eaten a couple bites, you take it home with you, and you've got it for breakfast that morning, and lunch that afternoon, and dinner the next night, and you're still thinking about the bubble room. So, yes. And then, because more is more, the third floor opened up, and the piano leg was rebuilt, and I sprayed the piano bright pink. And I bought this huge stuffed tiger that was like this big. I just loved him, and he had on a bling collar, and I put him laying on top of the piano. And I thought, you know what, this piano needs to move, so we built a revolving stage that went round and round and round. And we hired a piano player that had a chihuahua, and he said to me, he said, I'm not driving all the way out here and leaving my dog. And I said, I understand totally. And he goes, and he likes bones. I said, what kind of bones? Prime rib bones. Fine, we'll do the prime rib bones. We'll get you whatever you want. And I like to drink. I said, that's okay too, just play the piano. So we set him up there, and it reminded me, because people smoked a lot then. And so we closed we're supposed to close at 10 to say our last person got out of there at 11, and they went up the stairs. And that place, I do not know how that third floor did not fall down to the second floor, because there were so many people up there. And by midnight, I don't know if it was going around and round that got the piano player or the drinks, but he was face down in the piano, and the chihuahua was asleep next to him. And it was just, when I think back, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. So just one more thing, and I'll just tell you. I'm not a writer, and my daughter said to me, we've all had ups and downs in our lives, and I went through a pretty hard period, one of them, and my daughter said to me, Mama, write the book. And I said, Paige, I have, first of all, dyslexia, and everything's backwards. She said, write the book. And so I wrote the book. And my dear Yayas, who proofed the book for me and kept on calling and saying, what is this word? And so 6,000 books. And I still make every one of them. I glue in the envelopes and I hand stamp them. But this is the end. And for me, it's, like I said, it's sad, but it's good. And I love it because I call it a coffee table uncookbook. And so many of you have been so gracious to me and in telling me how much you've enjoyed it. So I just have to say that today has been a special day for me. Tonight has been, and something that I'll hold in my heart and my mind for, the rest of my life. And I hope I still have a bunch of good years left. So I think I do. And thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.